All right, good afternoon, everybody. This is a follow-up to my stream last week. Last Saturday, we had John Vivanco online, and we talked all about remote viewing, and we were on for a good couple hours, and this is not going to be that long of a video. I decided to get in here and put in an addendum to last week's show by providing all the templates that we used and just some brief explanations. So I should be through this hopefully within 30 minutes. If it goes that long, I'm not doing it right. Okay, and before we get started, I want to invite you to have a look down at the description field. If you want to support this channel, there's a tip jar down there. I've got merch available. I got a merch store with all kinds of cool stuff and t-shirts and sweatshirts and a variety of different colors for both men and women. You might have a look at that. Anyhow, without any further ado, I'm going to go ahead and dive into how to remote view and cover the templates. Before we do that, I want to address one question a viewer out there had, and it's a pretty good point. They stated that here's a couple of guys online who know exactly how to do this and probably aren't explaining it very well. So I noodled on that for this week, and I thought, I'm going to put together something really quick. I'm going to start with just here's my take on how to remote view. Number one, you got to learn how to quiet, not necessarily discontinue the activity of your mind. You got to learn to tune in, listen, sense, observe, and record data about the objective. So here's another way of thinking about it. So let's say if you're just relaxing after a long day, you've got a lot of events of the day going on in your head. You may have come off of a movie and you're thinking about those sort of things. Whenever you're in your quiet time, there's things that are going on through your head. That's all the background noise. It's the monkey mind that's constantly running. There's nothing you can do to shut that off. It's an indication that we're alive and breathing and reproducing blood and doing very well in our life. The question is, how do you control it? So if we take conscious control over that monkey mind state and learn to relax and then set the intent. Remote viewing is about intent. What do you intend to see, listen, feel, sense, hear, and so forth? So if you can focus that intent on the objective at hand and record it, that, at least from my perspective, is a big part of what remote viewing is. How do you teach somebody that? Well, we start with learning how to relax. Meditation could be part of it. Binaural beats, they're simply a tool that you can use, which may or may not help you to calm the mind and to open up. I've got a website here by Gene Narl. This is an open source software that John Vivanco had mentioned in his presentation last Saturday. And as it says here, it's an open source program that can be used to create your own binaural beats. One of the questions I got from you guys was, well, can you give us a list of the binaural beats that John uses? Well, he creates his own. And he suggests creating your own, and you could use this application to create them. There are tutorials on how to use the app and create binaural beats. This thing has been around for a long time for creating binaural beats, and you'll find some articles out there about its effectiveness and so forth. Highly recommend you follow this link, go read about it. Now I have here about Adobe Audition. It's an application that I use. It's an audio editing application. And what I'm going to do, and what I've already done, is preparing a presentation for you guys on how to create binaural beats using Adobe Audition. I'm not going to go down the Gene Narl path because it's already been done, but I can share with you what I know about creating them in Adobe Audition, and I'll do another live stream on that probably within the next week or so. So there are other editing applications that you can use as well to create these custom beats. You just kind of have to dig around. Specifically, the beats that John recommends are in the theta range, and that's going to be creating a difference between the two frequencies, between the left and the right ear, between 4 and 8 hertz. You can audibly hear those frequencies, and depending on your ear and your mind, you may be able to sense and audibly hear down as low as 4 hertz. Some people can't. For me, I'm cranking it up to around 7 and 8 hertz to be able to hear it, but you don't have to hear them for these beats to actually work. So that's just a heads up on that if you're out there looking for beats and listening and not necessarily hearing the distinct tones. So when you're creating these things, you want to create a variety for them to dive into the remote viewing. As it says here, alternately search for theta binaural beats online. Just do a search for it. Avoid the ones, I asked John about this last week. He said you can search for them, but avoid the ones that have vocal guided meditations. You want to avoid those. Okay, so we're going to move on to the next slide. Okay, so the very first thing that you have within the TDRV methodology, the transdimensional remote viewing methodology, are advanced perceptuals. And this is the form that's used, and you saw this last week. This is a cleaner version of it. You write AP at the very top, it's centered. You write the date and the tag address, which is left aligned. The remainder of the page is for whatever you sense, words, descriptions, drawings, whatever comes to you, whatever you may receive in words, flashes, visions, and other information that goes on here. And let me take a step back for a moment. The assumption here is this is after you've, this is like you're getting into your cool down state. So you cool down as you've got your earbuds plugged in, your headset plugged in, you're listening to your binaural beats. You're getting yourself out of that monkey mind thought from the events of the day and maybe that last movie you saw. And you're starting to focus on the objective, and this is just the first step through. You're just beginning to open the door, that of remote viewing and of the objective, and that's what this advanced perceptual page is doing. And you want to move fast, date, tag, address, and you just go through what comes to you. Turn the page. You pull out another piece of paper. The next piece of paper is going to be the header and transit. And I'll show you the template here in a minute. But to describe what's on it, the paper is typically oriented as portrait. Do it landscape if you want, whatever, doesn't matter. This is the first page of a session. It is not assigned a page number, and the header contains these bulleted information, information about the type of session. It'll be either VB, VI, or VPI. That stands for viewer blind, viewer informed, or viewer partially informed. Typically, the sessions that you do in class are going to be viewer blind. If you're doing something professional, you may be slightly informed or fully informed. So it just really depends on the whole purpose of the directive provided by the tasker and what your role as a remote viewer is in that particular session. That's specified up there. You've got the viewer's emotional state. You know, this is almost like checking in. Okay, I'm feeling pretty crappy today, or I'm feeling happy, whatever. You just write it in ES : how you feel. Your super secret name. You invent a name, stick with it. This is to, you know, if anybody ever finds those papers, prevents them from tracking back to you who ran this session. So pick a name, pick an alias, and stick with it. The directive number is assigned by the tasker, and usually it's part of a bigger project. The physical state, that's you. How do you feel physically? Just as you have an emotional state, you also personally have a physical state. So it's PS : and whatever your physical state is, write that out. You write the date, you write the time and the time zone. You draw a line and write the letter T below it, which defines the page as the transit. I used to think that the line you drew was like a transit line, but this whole page here represents the transit. After that, you jump immediately to writing the 8-digit tag and address, and then you jump to drawing your quick ideogram, which we described at length in the session last week. And then after you do that, you grab a blank piece of paper for the next page, and that becomes your first scan or survey. So let's jump into the transit header. Here you have it right here. Here's how it's laid out. On the right side, you see exactly how it's all laid out. All the stuff has already been done. The procedure is you move quickly. After completing the header and the transit line, you write the 8-digit tag, immediately close your eyes, and without lifting your pen from the paper, draw a quick squiggle line ideogram, and this doodle will contain the energetic signature of the objective. However, at this point, you don't want to probe or dwell here. We're moving quickly. Just as you went from the AP, the advanced perceptual, into the transit, we're doing the same thing. After you get that squiggle on there, you get that doodle, that ideogram, you immediately set the sheet aside, you grab a fresh sheet of paper, and you're going to move on to the scan or survey. This page is oriented in portrait format. The scan is the second to fourth, it represents the second to fourth pages of an entire session. S1 is positioned at the top center, and the page number is at the top right corner. You put page 2 over there. And you have 4 sections to this: A, B, C, and D. A is the physical description of the ideogram. Really quick, describe it. B is the declaration of the ideogram. Every survey must have a declaration. You declare whether it's a subject, a structure, water, mountain service, energy, or unknown. These are the basic declarations for ideograms. Again, we're moving quickly. C, the section C, is a low-level description. This is the decoding, low-level descriptions, general attributes of the ideogram: size, shape, mass, taste, smell, sound, temperatures, textures, visuals, etc. If it's a forest mouse, you don't say it's a forest mouse. You know, you're describing something soft, warm, and furry, and quick, boom, you're moving on to the next thing. A gestalt is a drawing or representation of the ideogram derived from the result of the scan. And you can call out and label parts of gestalts and drawings. But again, you're moving fast. You've done the survey. You know, you may go ahead, okay, do one quickly, and it may represent just a piece, just a small piece of the entire objective. And this is one thing that I think that sets TDRV apart from other methodologies, is that they focus. You know, they focus on small pieces of it. You know, you don't have these super long, complex ideograms that are all over the page and going on for miles and miles. They're really quick. So you get these little short little snippets. It's like that little riddle. You know, how do you eat an elephant? One bite at a time. So I think the TDRV, and John hasn't said this is my perspective. You know, TDRV is a lot like eating an elephant, and it's one bite at a time. Page 2 is S1. You know, you go and do this whole process. You do the whole scan survey all over again with the second ideogram, and a third and a fourth if it's necessary. If it's duplicating the same thing, stop, continue. You're going to move on. So let's go into the template and see what that looks like. Here's the template. Again, at the top, S1, right corner, you've got the page number 2. It could be page 2, 3, or 4. You've got the address. Those are what the letter N's represent. It could be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, whatever it is. You do your quick ideogram. Off to the right there is A, your physical description, B, declaration, C, low level, and down below you've got your gestalt. So again, you want to move quickly to define and declare your ideogram and the gestalt. Your sessions may run multiple pages, and I'm repeating myself. I apologize if I'm doing that, but I'm just reading through this. I'll let you continue on. We're going to go to the next page because I think we're done. But again, I want to reiterate the importance of the survey scan is to make sure you have a declaration. Moving on. Okay, here's an example, and you saw this last week in our live broadcast. This is an example. This address here, 00926290, and here's your ideogram. You've got A, B, C, and D. So they've got a subject in this here. They've got a gestalt off to the right instead on the absolute bottom. Again, it's, you know, it doesn't have to be perfectly matched to, you know, exactly. You know, you don't have to color within the lines. Just get it on the paper. And here you can see the low-level descriptions, you know, that the remote viewer was putting down: tall, graceful, and so forth. And that's an example of a scan survey. After the scan survey comes the collectors. You have two types of collectors. You have a defined collector and you have an open collector. The page is typically oriented in landscape. Again, you don't have to stick to that. At the top center, you're going to write DC for defined collector, and you're going to place the page number in the upper right corner. And I'll just jump right over to the next page real quick. But before I move on, all scans, if they're all the same thing, or if we have just one scan, instead of writing DC, you write OC at the top instead of DC. OC stands for open collector. So here we have an example of an open collector. You have 3 scans with that. I think I said that backwards before, so I apologize. I'm trying to get through this quickly. For each scan or survey, you're going to expand with additional details in each of these columns. So let's assume we had run 3 scans, 3 surveys. You would divide them into columns like that and just populate the page with additional information. And here's an example. Again, like I said, portrait, landscape, it doesn't matter. Get it on the paper. Up on the top, in this example, you see, you know, it's a collector, 1, 2, and 3. All 3 are subjects. And then they've divided it out by 3, and these are word descriptions. But that doesn't prevent you from putting drawings. You can use drawings and label them as well. If you're seeing something that's picturesque, put it in there. Make a drawing, label it. After the collectors, you have a general sketch. Page is oriented, again, landscape, portrait if it works, whatever works for you. The top center, write GS for general sketch. Page number in the top right corner, and in this case we're assuming we had 3 scans, and this would bring us to page 6. Use the entire page to make drawings. List of descriptions. Label the drawings. It contains everything that you've sensed thus far. Ideograms, stick figures are completely acceptable if you're not an artist, so don't beat yourself up. You don't draw well, it doesn't matter. Just label everything. Again, here's an example of a couple of general sketches that were done by remote viewers. I'll get to what the objective here was a little later on. But here you can see 2 different remote viewers on their general sketches. They got some things in common, don't they? The next item in the list of tools and forms and we have is the matrix M1. And this is just one form of TDRV matrices that John has in his quiver, so to speak. So if you want to learn more about matrices, consider taking his class. But he said that this is one of the most useful matrices that he's got. This page is also oriented to landscape. Now this one's probably going to work better off for you, specifically in landscape due to its columnar-late nature. Right, M1 at the top. From left to right, you're going to fill out the column headers, SMTE, SJP, PP, C, SB, and PRD. And down below, you can see what all those things mean. I'm not going to read them off to you. The matrix procedures for each of those column headers, you may write focus on subject or focus on structure, or you can ask a series of questions and behave like you're an investigator. What's it made of? What is the energy of the structure? When is it in time, and so forth. Again, I'm not going to read through all these. I'll let you pause and read through them yourself. And again, proceeding from left to right, you focus. Each focus or question gets its own row and is aligned with the column header above it, such that when this form is completed, you'll see the blocks of text form this diagonal pattern. Now, I found something interesting. John had mentioned last week that there's a reason for this. He didn't say what it was, but he said there's a reason for it. It's too much to go into. Now he's got me curious. And if you're curious enough to take his class, go for it. I'd like to learn more. Anyhow, proceed as usual, recording whatever comes to you. There's no need to color within lines like I mentioned before, except to left align your text with the column header. Examples of initials that you'll see used in the example text coming up on the next slides are things like W stands for word, V stands for vision, PR stands for physical reaction, DS stands for data stream. Now, something like PR, physical reaction, I can tell you about one session I had done. I got into it and I started feeling nauseous. I put the pen down to reset, picked it up, tried going again, and I got nauseous again. I discontinued the session, walked away for a couple hours, come back, tried it again, and that nauseous sensation came back. So ladies and gentlemen, for me, it's very real. You may experience something different, but the whole point is you have these initials that can help you shorthand this thing when you're putting a lot of words down. In any case, use as many pages as you can fill. Don't feel restricted to one page. Here's the example template of what it looks like. Page 7, and here's an example of an actual session. And here again, you can see how under each of these column headers, you've got it left justified and aligned underneath the column, and it goes down left to right at a diagonal. Again, here's another example, and where the remote viewer put in there, focus on the subject, and question mark location, question mark objective. So you can put things in square brackets if you want, aligned with this and make it look real pretty, or you can just put it right up there at top. I like this. I like TDRV. It doesn't stick you in a box and shove you. You absolutely have to do it one way. I say get it on paper as long as it's readable and it's decipherable by your tasker. Great. But this is what somebody like John would expect to see. All right. So all the examples you've seen to date were remote viewers tasked on this particular objective. If you've been following William Tompkins, you know anything about him and his story and his books. This was a photograph that was taken at Agua Hedionda Lagoon, I may be mispronouncing that, in Carlsbad, California, back when he was learning to write his book. He went to Palomar Junior Community College and took a class there about how to write books, and he stood up and talked about, what are you writing your books about? Of course, Bill, what's he going to talk about? He's going to talk about aliens and ships and things like this. One of the ladies in the class said, oh, I have one of those. And Bill said, one of what? He said, she's got a photograph. He asked her to bring it in. He got to see it, and here you see it, and he asked her permission to take it to Kinko's and get a color copy of it, and she granted him permission to do that. This isn't his photograph. It was not taken by Bill. It was provided by somebody in the class. So anyway, that's the source of this picture, and that's what this remote viewing session was all about. So let's go to the next page. All right, so consciousness maps. Consciousness maps, I got to tell you right now, this is probably my weakest area with the remote viewing. When I was taking this class, I didn't completely grasp this. Didn't really practice it much at all because it was just a whole different part of my brain at the time. I didn't want to go there, but there are some of you may relate to this and you may be able to use it. In any case, it's not something to be used willy-nilly, because when we perform consciousness mapping, we blend with a subject. The consciousness map page is oriented, as you see, portrait below, and you write CM at the top center of the page and the page number at the right. I'll tell you what these letters mean here in just a second. On the right side, you'll see CT, CC, ST, and SC. Each of those quadrants represent conscious thought for CT, conscious condition for CC, subconscious thought and subconscious condition for ST and SC respectively. So the procedure, the protocol here is you're going to write and say, blending with whoever your subject is. You're going to draw this consciousness map, showing it right. You're going to place your pen in the middle, and you're going to trace outward to feel into their, say, subconscious thoughts. So you're going to draw the line up towards the CT, and then you're going to record whatever comes to you. And the same thing for the other 4 sectors of this graph. Important. When you're done running this consciousness map procedure, it's important that you write and you speak aloud, unblend with whoever you've blended with, and then write the letters EOS on your paper. And as you're writing that S on your paper, you don't lift your pen from the page. You scroll a line away from the letter S, and this is considered a return transit. And you say out loud, end of session, and then you put the pen down. So that's the procedure for consciousness mapping. When it comes to structures, you can morph with a structure to get more information about it, and you follow the same procedure: unmorph, end of session, and put the pen down, just as you do with a consciousness map. And I thought this was interesting in the class that John mentioned. Look, if you ever do a consciousness map on aliens, be prepared for a visit. Okay, physical profile. The physical profile page is oriented portrait. You write PP at the top center. You work in subconscious condition, and you write what it is, then trace that work with your trance-like feeling for about 20 minutes to the center of the consciousness map. So this is used in conjunction with the consciousness map. So when you're done, you're going to leave the paper on the desk, and you will see the energy flowing coming off this. You'll see what's actually in the physical profile in the next page here just now. And here it is. So PP at the top, you've got your little gingerbread man there, stick figure, what have you. And the procedure here is that you're going to draw a shape of the physical body just as you see there, and with your pen, you're going to draw outlines around the body to represent their energy body. And then you'll use your probe, use your pen to probe the drawing that you've just made for physical and energy issues, and you're going to write them down. And I'll stop here for a moment to tell you my experiences with this. We'll get into remote healing in a minute, but as I was doing it, as I was running through the energy around the outside of it, whenever I came to a certain point in the body, I felt this energetic pump or bump in the pen every time I passed, let's say it's like the elbow. Whenever I passed like the left elbow, there was a little bump every time I went around. So there's some issue going on with that person's elbow, okay? Just as an example. So the sorts of things that you're going to describe here on this form are physical gender. What's the physical gender of the individual? So if you're going in blind and you're running this, you may not know the gender, but if you're doing something like remote healing, you will, because they've granted you permission. But you write down what their physical gender is, what are their identifiable characteristics, skin tone, hair color, does the person wear glasses, do they have tattoos, weight, height, body shape, and so forth. And again, to give you from my experience, having done this on another session with another individual, I was able to discern certainly the tone of their skin. I was able to surmise nationality, hair color, length of hair, color of eyes, clothing, color of clothing, jewelry this person wore, and so forth. So for me, it kind of went outside just the physical descriptions. It went beyond that. It went into almost this whole aura of the individual. Energy. Again, once you're there, you're going to probe for shapes and color. Again, these are notes from John's class. He said, you may come across milky colors. Shapes appear, appear in the body's physical issues. And I describe feeling a tangible bump on the pin as I came across an issue. Your elbow had a problem. In any case, you write down everything that you sense. The next page, I'm going to show you an example of a subject here. Maybe that's the one after this. So we're kind of blending both the profile, the physical profile with remote healing. I'll let you go ahead and read this. I've pretty much covered all this in any case. Bottom line, always remember to unblend an EOS as described earlier. There's two things that you're doing here. You're blending with the person and their person's energy. All right. I apologize for the blank screen here. I need to jump to the next section here, remote healing. So here's an example session of remote healing. All right. You're going to be performing a scan, like a survey here. They put S at the top here. I don't know that everybody necessarily do this. You're going to remote view the most beneficial healing energy for that person. You'll see here a squiggly line. You'll see like you'll make a drawing of the most beneficial healing energy for that person, and you'll describe what that energy looks like. So it's all written down. And then what you'll do is you'll blend with the energy. Okay. And this is the second blending of a remote healing session. Next page. So here's an example of the healing being drawn into the individual, right? So you see the physical body here. You've got the outline of them. You see the energy body that along the outside, which the remote viewer had drawn. You see the healing energy at the top, and then it's pulled down. All these lines are drawing or pulling that energy from their representation of healing energy into the body for what that individual needs. Once again, when you're done with this, you want to unblend and end of session at the bottom. You want to transit out and put your pen down. And as I was mentioning on the previous slide, in remote healing, there are two layers of blending and unblending. You're blending and unblending with the subject, and you're blending and unblending with their energy. You don't want to ever assume in remote healing what it is the individual needs, and you don't ever want to do this without their permission. So you always seek their permission and always seek to find the most beneficial energy for them, okay? Those are some warnings that John provided as well. And again, here I've got my slides a little out of order. This was the first part of drawing out the gingerbread cookie man and labeling all the various parts. You may find some issues with the person. Maybe they're dehydrated. Maybe their shoulders are thick. Maybe they've got intestinal problems. Whatever it is you sense, it's all going to be labeled here. So again, I apologize for this being out of order. All right, with that, we are...